reasons we've done what we've done all these years is we started questioning those original ideas and traditions and deciding, okay, this is valid for us. This is not valid for us. So what do we need to do instead? And it's another big experiment when you think about it. And you and I have discovered sometimes what our basic beliefs are based on the most spectacular getting it wrong somewhere. And recognizing, okay, it can't be this, so what's left? We have blown up belief structures enough regularly over the years, I think, that we have kind of distilled a lot of what we think down to the most basic stuff, like our definition of a witch is, our definition of witchcraft is. And we're talking about it and sharing about it so that other people can say, oh, I didn't think about it that way, or, oh, you think the same way I do, or I disagree with you completely, and all of them are valid responses to anything we say.
Oh, absolutely. Looking back, I think one of the critical jumps that we made in our practice, I know personally for me and us as a group, when we started yearly looking at our practice and doing that kind of self-evaluation of, okay, what do we think? But doing it on a conscious level, that was when, for me, my practice became so enriched because of that feeling of full participation. I put too many syllables in that one. In self and self-knowledge, and that itself is a freedom.
Well, sure. It's like I take ownership of my beliefs today.
Yes.
Okay, they're mine. They are generated from a lot of reading, a lot of trying stuff out, a lot of, like you said, evaluating and thinking on a regular basis. And once I have like that baseline of where my beliefs are right now, then I can look at what we're doing with a more critical eye. I mean, there are certain things we have done pretty consistently over the years that continue to work. And then there are other things that I know we did, for want of a better word, religiously, ritual or practice, that we don't do anymore because they don't match what we do now. That doesn't mean when we go back and look at our beliefs, one of the things we also do is we look at those foundations every year. We revisit some of that stuff.
Yes.
To make sure that our growth hasn't, for want of a better word, make us forget where we came from, which I think is also important to know where you started out, to see where you are now, and because it gives you a measure of growth. And then the other piece is there stuff we stopped doing that might be valid to try again on a different, because our experience of it is going to be so different. Because
you're not at the same point on your path.
No, you're not.
And you're right. Being able to revisit things and to not feel, we never make either one of us feel bad about something we did in the past, like, oh, that was so stupid. It's always an acceptance. And, we used to do things that way. Why did we do it that way? And is it still working?
And why did we stop? Why did we stop?
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's important. I think that's a big part of a definition of a witch is, I think a witch more than anything else is a person who's willing to question.
Yes, that's a good definition.
It's like that little kid. Why? We've all seen those, and the parents are tearing their hair out in the restaurant. Why is the sky blue? Why is the grass green? Why? And sometimes it's just because it is.
Yes.
And how many parents has said, because I say so? 57 why questions, But at the same time, we do ask why.
Well, and you need to ask why until you get to the point of the, I don't know. Because then that opens everything up to, all right, why?
Pretty much.
And why don't you know?
And sometimes we're meant to know because we are humans in that sense, those are the whys that you just have to put down because you can, chew on them like a dog that won't give up the bone that's falling to pieces kind of thing. And knowing the difference. And I think that's a big part of the questioning process is knowing the difference, that there are some things you don't know. And that's okay too.
Acceptance of the ineffable.
Mm-hmm. Which is a wonderful definition of the divine when you think about it.
Yes.
And
it's not totally forever and ever and ever beyond, but it is right now.
Maybe. Or maybe not. That's the best part of not knowing.
I figure out things all the time.
Yeah.
So.
And that's kind of how we work as people.
Yes.
And the big part about being a witch and practicing witchcraft is, at its most basic, you can call it whatever you want.
Yes, and you can call yourself whatever you want.
Yeah. We just personally, and I think a good place to sum it up is we are witches with all of the whys and the unknowns that go along with that term. And while we may be crone in age, we may not necessarily be crone all the time in spirit, or with a level of expertise that supposedly comes up with being older.
Yes.
And at its most basic for us, witchcraft is working with energies to affect change in ourselves. And that change in ourselves leads to change, first of all, in how we perceive others and the world around us, hopefully with a bit more acceptance than the last time we looked at things. And it leads to changes in the world in which we inhabit.
Absolutely, yes.
In the grand scheme of things, it's like water dripping on a rock. Eventually it's going to erode it if it drips long enough. Either that or it may move and decide to go around the rock and leave it alone. So with that being said, we'll move on to other things. Witchstones are a divination tool we created as part of our practice that deals with what we call concrete stones, specific types and kinds of energy, and conceptual stones, things and ideas about witchcraft, which can be read with either a seen or an unseen meaning. Recently, we have developed a set of oracle cards using this information. We would like to introduce you to one of these stones right now.
In today's spotlight, we'll be looking at the Witchstone Full Moon. Concrete stones focus on a specific physical energy rather than a concept, and the second 4 concrete stones are the 4 phases of the moon. The first witchstone is the full moon. It displays a pictograph of a white circle representing the moon shining in the night sky, illuminating a world full of magic. For those of us who walk the path, each phase of the moon is associated with different energies for personal, spiritual growth, and development. Full moon energy correspondences include intuitive awareness and establishing connections, bringing things to fruition and harvesting, obtaining knowledge and the accumulation of goals, and all types of magic. It is also the time when things come together and lead to the fulfillment of your spell work. The seen energy for the full moon stone in a reading is an apex, an achievement, and fulfillment. To come to an apex is to reach the highest point, and that matches to the light energy of the moon. You may recognize an achievement or manage the fulfillment of commitments made to yourself or others. You may reach goals or complete things. There can be a sense of relief that things have come together. The unseen energy for the full moon stone in a reading is an apex, unseen creation, and unexpected results. You may not be aware of reaching the apex of energy for some reason, and this can cause different things in your life. You may reap the rewards of an unseen creation. There may be some unexpected results to your magic, often giving you what you most need instead of what you thought you wanted. You may feel slightly unsettled because of being surrounded by the unexpected. Before we go, we'd like to present you with a tip or trick or witchy hint, just something to make your day go better, because we live in a mixture of the magical and the mundane.
Today's witchy hint is, don't put your new crystals in water, especially salt water, to cleanse them of some kind of energy. Many of us get the idea that we need to get rid of all of the energy in a crystal or any other item we buy before beginning to work with it. We hear about how there's energy in production and shipping and people handling the stone in a store before you buy it and so on and so forth. What you really want is to be able to return it to its own natural energetic state. The cleansing process is much easier than it seems for most things. However, we're talking about crystals today. The big thing is don't immerse them in salt water or water, which is often suggested in things that you read as the best way to cleanse anything before you use it. Many crystals can be ruined by exposure to water or salt water because it can cause changes in properties, the color, it can melt, all sorts of things can happen. The biggest thing when working with any new tool or other crystal is kind of to ask what it wants you to do. Very often it will tell you, you don't have to bother to cleanse me at all. It's fine. However, if you're more comfortable, I have found the best way to prepare a crystal for use is to put it next to the earth for a while. I have a little pot that I keep in the corner of my room away from direct sunlight that has some dirt in it, and I'll just set a new crystal on top of it for a couple of weeks and leave it alone to reset itself. I set it in indirect light instead of in moon or sunlight because direct light is not good for a lot of different rocks as well. After all, rocks come from being buried deep within the earth, and they're not exposed to light on a regular basis until we dig them up. However, the point is, if you feel the need to cleanse your crystals in any way, try this method as opposed to one that could damage it and cause it not to function in the way it wants to or the way you want it to. Well, it looks like the coffee cups are empty for this week. We hope you join us again next Tuesday, but you can find us at our website, 2youngcrones.com. That's the number 2, Young Crones, all one word.
You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram, and our Twitter handle is @2youngcrones. Check out our merch at our Teespring store. We also have a Patreon account called the Young Crones Cafe, where you can support the podcast if you enjoy our efforts.
Until then, remember, we are witches who work with energies to effect change.
We are believers in both immanent and transcendent divine.
We are celebrants of the passage of the solar and lunar cycles.
We are hedge walkers who pass back and forth between the worlds of the magical and the mundane.
We are seekers of knowledge.
We are walkers of a spiritual tradition we call the path. So mote it be.